Hello everyone and welcome back to my video blog, Return to Eve. And today I want to cover a few things, including some things that just cropped up in the news that some people might be interested in, that at least was of interest to me, at least for those of us who are in the sci-fi genre. And it's a game of a certain star and with a certain citizen and a certain egregious amounts of monetization. We'll cover that just a second. So, anyways, I am back in HiSec. I'm here in Rennes. I got my little cargo ship here. And, well, why am I here not in the Curse region, out in 0.0? Well, I wasn't quite feeling it. In the Curse, I was trying to get things set up. And I was flying around in my little Tristan. And, I kind of really, really missed HiSec. Well, the locals in Curse are wonderful. They are beyond great, okay? Because they clearly saw my anguish of missing HiSec. And in so doing, they decided to take it upon themselves to take care of that problem for me by literally relieving me of my ship and my clone and sending me back to HiSec. And I didn't have to ask them about it. I didn't have to ask. They took it on their own accord to take care of that for me. So here I am. As I can see here with my little Tristan in combat capsule, once again blown away by Decoy, who seemed to have a certain thing for me, but always devout in the heart, always ready to lend a hand. So much so that they had a saber, 3 interceptors, and everything else just to hunt down one T1 frigate. Okay, really? Okay, great, wonderful. Well, anyways, I can jump back here because there are some things I do want to do in HiSec, namely see if I can get some orders going and going from there. So, anyways, I'm gonna jump back here. This is where I usually station out of in the Curse region. I also station out of the Great Wildlands region, which is a very interesting region because this is all empty space except for 3 NPC stations, but it's still under the sovereignty of the Thukr tribe, so it's NPC space, so it can't be captured by the major power alliances, basically. So it's an interesting place to hang out. There's some locals there that I think they're called the Great Wildlands Conservation Society, or basically any kind of player structure that's put up, whether it's a citadel, a refining station, or something like that, or even a customs office. If it's not there, they blow it up, and they try to keep the Great Wildlands pristine and pure for themselves. They themselves have no problem putting things up, but everyone else is removed. So anyways, I am back now here. And let's see where I'm in. Hymentar, right? Yeah, I think I'm in Hymentar. Yeah, Hymentar region. And I'm back in Rennes. Anyways, I have started to set up some market orders. Very, very base level stuff. So I'm trying a little bit of an experiment here. One out in 0.0. I'm not sure if it's going to go anywhere. But also here in Rennes. And I've actually had a few takes on some T0 planetary materials. And I'm just trying to see how this is going to go. So I picked up some aqueous liquids, some heavy metals, some base metals. And what I want to see here. So typically, the raw planetary minerals is the we'll call T0. This is the very base. You rip it out of the planet, and it's in its base form. Now, for those of you who don't do planetary interaction very much, as you go up the chain, of course, the value of what you have increases, but there's also a size compression that goes along. So the planet that you're working on, they can pull out a lot of about any of these. Carbon compounds, atrophos, microorganisms, and yes, they are at a Very, very small size, 0.005 cubic meters, but pulls out thousands and thousands of them. So it's always good on a planet to at least push this up to T1, which I believe is the processed one. Yeah, I think it's processed. So if we go to like chiral structures, for example, planetary industry, 3,000 of these crystals creates 20 chiral structures, but one chiral structure is now 0.19 cubic meters. But if you do the math, this 3,000 to 20, 0.19 is actually slightly smaller in size than the base material, which is actually a good thing for logistics. And it goes up most of that chain, T1 to T2, T2 to T3 in compression. But I think in T4, though, it changes. I think it actually becomes much bulkier at that point. I don't know for certain. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the case. Anyways, so what I'm trying to see here is there an actual market for raw materials? I'm sorry, raw planetary materials. My bad. And see what I can do with them. So with the orders that I have base and heavy. So I'll go from here. So I can take these, create toxic metals from the heavy. And then I believe with the base materials, which goes into something, I think it's construction blocks. Let's see, is it reactive? Let's see here. Base materials goes into what? Reactive, yeah. So reactive, and that goes into construction blocks. So with these kind of base type of materials, I could take these from buying them off the market and see maybe if I can put them into a cheap barren planet with very low taxes and actually use it as a full-blown manufacturing facility rather than using it for pure extraction. It's a little experiment that I'm running here. I'm not sure if it's even going to go anywhere, but we'll see. Now, market orders, I got aqueous, but I did not buy anything for Bacus. So I got construction blocks. Let's see where aqueous goes. So, of course, it goes into water. Water can go into, well, coolant's always kind of a nice one. Superconductors, test cultures. Yeah, that goes gel, geometric biopaste, test cultures, goes into some of these other types of materials. Or cold CPU goes into computer systems, guidance systems. Okay. And that goes into computer modules. So water is actually a very useful product because it goes into a lot of things. So if I go to superconductors, we go to plasmoids. See, this goes into three things. So let's actually start purchasing some suspended plasma. There it is. 5.49. All right. Let me check here 1 second. Right now, I'll put my handy dandy Eve Central tool. Let's see here, or is it Eve Market? Let's see, Eve Market. Yeah, Eve Tycoon. Okay. So, suspended plasma. Let's go to market hubs only. And let's see what we can see. Okay. So it's actually a pretty decent price spread right now. Jita price says 3.11. Amar is slightly lower than that, but there's only one buyer at 3.11. Amar's got some good sales, or good buyers, I should say. Let's do either 3 or 2.9. Let's do it by order. Let's do 2.95. I'll do 1 million. Let me just make sure that matches my other orders here. 5 million. 5 million for Aqueous. Let's match that. There you go. Minimum 1. Range, we want on station for 3 months. Remember that. And yes. Okay, so that's a decent price. Okay, plankton colonies, reactive gas. There's quite a few there. Plasma, okay. Okay, aqueous, am I the top? So that guy's one jump away at 1 million. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So I'm best at plasma. Let's see here. Base metals, we're good there. And let's see, what's my other one? Heavy metals. My favorite music. And we're still good there. Okay. So we have that covered there. Maybe I want to go and spread out a little bit more here. Gotta take a look at what is good for. So these are for proteins. And I can go to fertilizer, livestock, and this goes into vaccines, and this goes into sterile conduits, and this goes into, yeah. I may not worry too much about that one. Sulfalcic plasma. This makes silicon. And these are a little bit more rare because trying to find a good lava planet is a bit difficult. Even in low-sec and null-sec. Alright, so let's see here. Felsic plasma. Oh, wow. Yeah. What are these prices? My goodness. Okay. So Jita, buying price right now in Jita, 5.35. Couple good buyers there. And the sell price is 5.78 to 6. This is 24. Okay. Well, yeah. Let's see here. Should I actually go a little above Jita? Let's do 5.4. So let's 5.4. And let's do 5. Do 5 million. Again, station, 3 months. Buy. There. That will make it a little bit more worthwhile. And we'll see what happens. All right. Let's see for sales. I don't mind showing this because, you know, I'm just playing around. You know, this is not super hardcore. If y'all want to, you know, play against me in the market or blow me up, be my guest. Remember, the character's name is Maesui, so put that on your watch list if you want to come gank me. You know, more the merrier. So I do have quite a few things in Molden Heath, so I'm actually going to move over there. So I'm going to switch over to my shuttle. Gallente. This was not named yet? Okay. Let's say... if I could spell this right. Let's say it's Silene. Okay, and what I want to go is to... Where's it? I bring her. Do I have anything there? It's actually Teonuse. So if you were just come out and you look at Molden Heath is an interesting region because it kind of goes in a ring with several exit points into 0.0. I had a lot of fun on Molden Heath. I always thought that was a neat place. But the main trade hub for Molden Heath is Teonuse, if I'm pronouncing that right. So we'll see. All right, we're going to take off here, and I can jabber for a little bit. One of the interesting comments that I had in my last Return to Eve video was tugging the old heartstrings, man. They brought up Dust 514. I think if you ask a lot of Eve players that were around when Dust 514 was active, you'll almost get a little bit of a tear in the eye. I mean, that is a really interesting, beloved game. FPS shooter, very innovative, tied into Eve Online, really did some very new and interesting things and brought the system of Eve into a first-person shooter, which was very, very unique and has never been seen before or since. And I'm not a big first-person shooter guy. I mean, I'll play here and there. I played BioShock. I played a couple others. Played Doom and whatever back in the day. But Dust 514 was a very interesting concept. It's just very sad to see kind of what happened to it. Yeah, we're going to hit the autopilot. The problem with Dust 514 was not the concept itself, but rather the business ideas behind it to put it on the PlayStation 3 platform. The problem was that when they did put it on PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 3 was the end of its life cycle. It was phasing away, and PlayStation 4 was just on the horizon and about to be released. Why Dust 514 was not created for the PlayStation 4 or ported over to the PlayStation 4 is beyond me. This was a very, very bad decision. I know the rationale of why the decision was made, because the PlayStation 3 at the time had an already enormous installed base, rather than PlayStation 4, which didn't have any base at all, and they didn't know how fast it would be acquired to upgrade from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4. And so I'm not sure if there's any plans by CCP or its Chinese developer in Shanghai to port Dust 514 over to PS4. Of course, in the long run, the PlayStation 4 actually is the most, or one of the most successful consoles of all time. Actually, it's one of the largest installed player bases. Again, another idea is why wasn't it ported to PC? I can kind of understand maybe there was an idea from CCP there because the PC player base, if they're going to play an FPS, they're already going to do Call of Duty or Battlefield. They probably didn't want to cannibalize their existing EVE Online player base, which maybe have been a concern, and they wanted to tap into a new market with the console players, which were definitely not in EVE, at least for the most part. And that kind of business decision I can more understand, because that's tapping into a new market. Okay, but the execution of that decision was flawed, to say the least. But love Dust 514. The few times I was able to play it, I had the PlayStation 3 actually like on an ottoman in front of my couch, and I had a mouse kind of jury rigged to it and a keyboard. So I'm absolutely horrible with a controller. So I had to play with mouse and keyboard. But once got it to work, it was well worth it. So here's a tip off to Dust 514. And as someone mentioned, is Eve Vanguard it? I'm hearing a lot of the cases no. Eve Vanguard is not it. It is not Dust 514. It's an extraction shooter. It's more along lines of, again, what we see in the current available product in first-person shooters. Again, I'm not too familiar with it, so someone in the audience, please correct me. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I really would like to see some more integration between the Vanguard and what we're doing here in EVE Online. I thought it'd be really neat in Dust 514 if it actually became part of the main mechanic of capturing a station. Like, yes, the EVE Online players would capture the system and, either take down the control towers or the central node, but they couldn't actually capture the station unless there was a boarding team launched by pods that were part of Dust 514 in order to capture a major station. That would be cool. And they have to fight it in the landing bay and somehow get to some sort of control room, going through engineering, going through medical, going through whatever, and you have kind of this aliens-esque type of battle between the defenders and the attackers. Sadly, but that didn't come to pass. But maybe someday, who knows? We'll see. Okay, so we're in the system of Tianosaid. God, I know I'm butchering the name here, but just bear with me. And I want the first station. There's actually several structures here. There's a ice and ore refining station, 2.5% tax. Nexus Intergalactic Heathens. The problem here is I think these charge some pretty high sales tax, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to dock at the main NPC station here, which is the first one. So, but yeah, that was my thoughts on Dust 514. RIP. May it long be remembered. Now, on to more current news. As I mentioned, there's certain news here that just came out from a certain developer by the name of Chris Roberts and a certain game named Star Citizen. Now, for those of us who play EVE Online, of course, being roughly in the same genre of outer space and whatnot, I'm sure we're all familiar with Star Citizen. And I think probably a lot of us have donated and played or put money into Star Citizen or downloaded. I actually have not. At some point, I probably should. But I will say I'm quite familiar with Chris Roberts, and I'm, of course, familiar with the Star Citizen project. The main reason being is because I was and still am a big Wing Commander fan. I absolutely loved playing Wing Commander. And so the name Chris Roberts, to me, is really attached to Wing Commander, to Strike Commander, which is another great game that I loved, to Privateer, Privateer 2, which actually his brother did, but it's also a very unique game. It's very different, but a very unique game. I also think still very good, and a really good story, by the way. It's all showing available here. So now we're in Tianosaid. But the point being is this. So, as sure many of you have seen, the Star Citizen video game, the company that is developing it has used a very unique development model of crowdfunding this game and has gone insanely expensive. I'm not going to say successful because we're going to touch on that point at the moment, but this company, Cloud Imperial Games, has been able to raise $800 million in the open market from player donations. Okay? And that $800 million has been used to develop the Star Citizen video game and Ecoverse. This is because there's actually two games. There's Star Citizen, which is the breathing open world portion, and there's Squadron 42, which is the first person game. Single player game. I'm sorry. For single player game. They have burned $800 million and there's no released product yet. It is a half game. It is not even finished. Not even remotely finished. And that's my own personal opinion. I hear it's feature complete and all this stuff, but right now, this is a game that has been in development since 2013. Okay, the initial pitch was made in 2012. It's been in development since 2013. We are 12 years later. This is insanity. Where they have blown past Duke Nukem Forever, Daikatana, and the other vaporware blowups that we've had in the past. This is goes beyond that. So, what is going on? It's unbelievable. Just taking a look what I got here. Actually, I do think I need to start selling some of this stuff here. So let's see, toxic. All right, well, let's get back to the main point here. So, what happened today was Star Citizen and another round of funding decided to monetize the modules of the ship. So, in other words, each player gets a ship similar that we have in EVE Online, and they've released this new concept called Blades, which is some sort of like modification to the ship where your ship can take certain attributes at cost of others, and it's basically makes it a very modular ship. And when I heard this concept, I'm like, wait a minute. It sounds like very similar to the Tech 3 Cruiser or the Tech 3 Destroyer that we have in EVE Online. So these modifications are being sold for real money, though. They were not available in game, if there is a game. And at this point, the player base in Star Citizen exploded and revolted. The controversy was enormous. And so, Cloud Imperium Games, which is led by Chris Roberts, for once had to backtrack and say, sorry, we made an oops, this is bad on us, yada, yada, yada. Here's what we'll do. We'll, not go forward with this idea. We'll try something different. Really? Oh my goodness. So that was the big thing. All right, so sellers for toxic metals right now: Dodixie around 390, Hack around 400, Amar 408. You know what? Because we're on we're on low sec, I'm gonna actually put this on a little bit of a discount. We're gonna put on sale for let's do 375. I'll actually break it a little bit lower. I want to incentivize these being sold here because this is a lot to transport. Silicon. Let's see what we can sell here. Anyways, so that was a big revolt in the Star Citizen player base. That just about. I saw it on Inside Gaming. Great channel, by the way, if you've not seen it. Inside Gaming or Inside Games? It's one of those two. Take a look at my Inside Games. Yeah, so it's in the channel Inside Games. Highly recommended. Then I also saw an Angry Joe that also came up today. But the thing is, with Chris Roberts, I am not surprised. Again, I have followed his career almost from the beginning when I was actually a boy. I loved playing Wing Commander. Wing Commander 1 just hooked me. And I remember seeing it on a computer. My family didn't own a home computer at the time, but we went to some friend's house and they had this incredibly powerful 386 PC. I think it still had the turbo button. And they had Wing Commander going, and I was just floored. I mean, I could actually be inside of a starfighter, and I'm flying around, and I'm shooting everything, dying a lot, playing at this friend's house, and I just fantasized about that game. We finally did get a computer, and it was a pretty good one. It was a 46, but by that point, the series had gone on to Wing Commander 2. So that was my first Wing Commander game I played at home, was Wing Commander 2, and I was hooked, line, and sinker. I mean, I was caught in its net. Great narrative, great story, more ships, more types of gameplay, and a very cinematic story, which was the hallmark of Chris Roberts. Okay, and still is the hallmark of Chris Roberts. The peak of Chris Roberts' career, though, came at a time when we had Wing Commander 3 and Strike Commander. And he was really beginning to push the edge of what games were capable of in a narrative sense. In Wing Commander 3, he kind of reached the peak there where he made a huge leap in graphics technology where we went to 3D graphics. And this was, I believe, in 1993. We had 3D graphics. We had full motion video for the first time in a space sim. It was not the first time in PC games. It was the first time in the space sims. There were some PC games before that, like Seventh Guest and a few others. Murder mysteries, things of that sort. Second CD. But Wing Commander 3 had really good full motion video. Really forced time. And a good cast of actors. These were not B-roll actors. You know, these were actors like Mark Hamill, Malcolm McDowell, John Rhys Davis, Tom Wilson, and several others, which unfortunately I can't off the top of my head pull off my head right now. That was a groundbreaking game. Then came Wing Commander 4. And I think Wing Commander 4 is really what saw Chris Roberts really kind of push too far because he wanted to be a movie guy. He really wanted to push narrative. And I think Wing Commander 4 was the point he pushed narrative at the expense of gameplay. The movies were fantastic. You had full sets, top tier actors. There was more money spent on the full motion video portion of the game than it was on the game itself. And I think that's when EA at the time, because they had bought Origin, finally put the screws on Chris Roberts, and he left to pursue his narrative vision. And this has been a hallmark of Chris Roberts from that time forward. Always pushing that narrative edge that he could inside the medium. He actually did go into Hollywood. He was a producer for a little while. I think he did Lords of War and a couple other pictures. Came back into gaming and really took off when he came back and said he was doing another space sim because the entire Wing Commander community just rallied to him because the space sim genre, I'm not counting EVE Online here, because we are a little bit of a different animal. We're talking like cockpit-based space sim was essentially dead with a few exceptions. The X series, for example, which actually I still need to get into, and a few others. There were still a few outliers. There's still some holders on, but Chris Roberts came back and said he was going to bring back the genre, and so many people just threw money at him to do it. Interesting enough, the Elite series came back around the same time. But here's the thing. The Elite series actually got released. It was released a long time ago. And then you also had No Man's Sky, who went through a disastrous launch. And now the guy that's leading No Man's Sky has released update after update after update free of charge. You just buy the base game. And it's fantastic. Actually, I also got to play more No Man's Sky. I think I'll make a video of that here a little bit later on. This is Chris Roberts. I admire him. I admire him and what he has accomplished in his career. I admired what he did for the gaming genre and for the spaceship genre back in the 1990s. But I recognize his faults. If someone doesn't keep a leash on him, what happened was going to happen. And when the leash came off, we had no publisher to kind of keep him saying, hey, we need to deliver and you need to be on budget. The result is Star Citizen. Is Star Citizen going to be released? No, it's not going to be released. It may be pushed into market, but it will not be released in the vision that I think either Chris Roberts or his player base has of Star Citizen. So when I say it's not going to be released, it's not going to be released to the vision that has been advertised. You'll get something. Okay. And when it happens, I think there's going to be a lot of disappointment. There's going to be a lot of defenders of it because there's a lot of people who have sunk cost fallacy or they're just simple defenders of it, and some may actually even like it. But at $800 million and 12 years of development, I don't see how disappointment cannot be part of the equation. Okay, it's just, it's kind of like the Star Wars, the Phantom Menace effect. When the Phantom Menace came out in 1999, that was the most hyped Star Wars movie ever. For those of you who weren't around back then, or too young, or were not born yet, nothing you've seen in Star Wars, even The Force Awakens, compares to the hype that was before the Phantom Menace. And the hype was so big that today, when I think back on it, I don't see how the Phantom Menace was ever going to meet those expectations. And that's the same way I see for Star Citizen. There is no way Star Citizen is ever going to meet the expectations that his player base and the people who funded thousands and thousands of dollars to, tens of thousands in a few cases, how it's ever going to meet that. It goes to the old adage, it's better to underpromise and overdeliver than the opposite. So anyways, okay, Silicon on the phone, coming back here. Prices $835 for sellers, buyers $826. Okay, I'll put a solid 800. So we'll put a little bit of discount, but maybe not a gigantic discount. Let's put that there. I'll take care of some other stuff later on. So anyways, that's my thoughts on Star Citizen. I'm looking forward to if it ever releases. I know it's not going to release to the vision that's going to meet the vision of the people that have for it. And it's going to be a real truth-defining moment, I think, when it comes at that time. So anyways, that's my thoughts. Talking about Star Citizen. I actually haven't talked about EVE a whole lot. I talked about Dust 514. I talked about Star Citizen. But back here in EVE, yeah, I'm still getting things some setup here. I'm going to be in high sec for a little bit, and then I'm going to decide really what to do. Do I go back and being a trader in 0.0? Do I go maybe back into faction warfare? I had a lot of fun time in faction warfare when I did it quite a long time ago. Do I join a null-sec alliance? The problem with that is I don't have a ton of time. I can just give the time that I have in some places. And again, I run a separate Discord server. I'm very busy in real life. I have pulling almost 60-hour weeks. I'm also married, so my time is very limited. But for anyone who needs a good logistician, good EW, electronic warfare guy, yeah, maybe I can help along here and there. But again, if it's going to be one of those, hey, you need to be here for fleet operations at such a time, drop everything you're doing, you need to be here, we need to siege towers, we need this. I would love to do that, but I just don't have the time or bandwidth to do that, at least that was in the moment. So anyway, some things for me to think about. Go from there. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this vlog, this kind of discussion about a whole bunch of topics, even not that much in EVE, but I'll add more later. Okay, take care everyone and fly safe. Talk to you soon.